welcoming our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our viewers who are joining us again on television, but this time across the Berbice River, along the east bank of the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, Kanji, along the Quarantine Coast, and all the way up to Siparuta. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners and the viewers who are joining us on Facebook, on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown, welcome. And last but not least, to the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and as far as Australia and the Middle East. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share the program, press that share button on your phone, on your computer, on your laptop, on your iPad, or whatever device you are using to view this program. Share it so that all your friends and all your followers can join us in tonight's discussion. We want to have the widest possible audience. I want to welcome Robert Rampasad, Maureen Rosario, Navita Narain, Ramesh Soni, Kesh Sharma, Shirley Surajbali, and so many of you, Ramdayal Sadhu, Nazir Sultan, and so many of you from Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, and wherever you are. Welcome, and share the live, share the program so that all your friends can join us in tonight's discussion. Use the comment section. Use the comment section to voice your views. I want the program to be interactive. Ask questions. Express yourself. Do so decently. Do so with courtesy and decorum. Do so in a civilized way. And let us have a clean, intellectual discussion and exchange. So I want to hear from you. Use the column, use the comment section so that we can speak, we can interact. I don't want a monologue. So the major issue that has engulfed Guyana since we last met is the death of young Adriana Young. And it is my intention to spend a large part, if not the entirety of this program, to speak on this matter, as it has captivated the conscience, the emotions, and the national narrative of Guyana, and it is being viewed right across the Caribbean and across the globe. And a lot of things emanating out of this incident requires our examination, requires our analysis, requires our scrutiny. And we must do so objectively, and we must do so dispassionately. At the end of the day, we must learn from these processes, and we must learn from these experiences. Having said that, I want to reiterate, as I've already done, I want to reiterate to the parents, to the grandmother, to the aunts, and other relatives of Adriana Young, my deepest and most sincere sympathies and condolences. This is a tragedy of horrendous proportion. We grieve as a nation, and this tragedy has shocked the conscience of our country. The president very early intervened and publicly stated the government's position. The death was condemned. If there was anyone responsible for that, or anyone is responsible for that, the government's undertaking through the president is that an independent, professional investigation and probe would be done, and if there is anyone responsible, they would be brought to justice. The president committed all the nation's resources and promised to involve international persons, highly qualified persons in the process. It is public knowledge that the process has begun and it is ongoing. But a lot have happened while the process is unfolding. And what is happening and what have happened have allowed us an opportunity to do some grave introspections. Introspections about ourselves as a people and about the level of civility in our society and the way that we have evolved as a mature people. We have traveled a long and hard road to reach where we are. And this incident has allowed us a moment to soberly reflect on the progress we have made in advancing as a society. And have we advanced? And that is what I want to spend some time in reflecting. No doubt this tragedy has evoked great anguish, great pain, and unbearable sufferings. And to those directly affected, I don't pretend to understand the pain, anguish, trauma, and emotional turmoil to which they are subject and to which they have undergone since this incident occurred. I can't pretend to imagine that I know. It must have been of inhumane proportion. But the fact is, the death has occurred. And there are many questions that have to be answered. And let me state that up front. There are many questions that have to be answered. At the level of the police force, in the way the investigation unfolded, and many other things. I don't want to predict. I don't want to prejudice. I don't want to premeditate. I don't want to prophesize. This is a highly controversial matter, a highly contentious matter, and the least said about the investigation, the better. So, I will refrain from engaging in that type of conjecture and will await the investigation to unfold. But that doesn't preclude me from commenting on what have transpired outside of the realm of the investigation. As I said, it's natural for there to be hurt and there a lot of pain. But what I find objectionable is the way that others have used this tragedy as a platform to do what we have seen unfolding, disrespecting the grief and injury to the family that they have suffered and are actually suffering. But they have disrespected and disregarded the solemnity of the occasion and have used it as a platform to commit some of the most disgraceful social acts and highly charged criminal conduct. And this did not come from the relatives of the family of the deceased. This behavior largely emanates from those who saw an opportunity to destroy, to burn, to loot, to steal, to rob. And that is the first very firm set of things that I want to condemn. That which happened at the alleged locus in co, or the place of the alleged death, or the alleged place of death of the young lady. That's at the hotel. There is no justification for that mayhem to take place at that premises. None. And then what followed? The blocking of public roadways, the lighting of fires along public roadways, the destruction and defacing of public property, the inconveniencing of thousands of citizens of this country from going about their business, getting home to their families in the night, being beaten, being robbed, their properties being destroyed. That is what unfolded. Tell me what connection these horrendous criminal outbursts had with Adriana's death. They had no connection whatsoever. And it didn't stop there. It multiplied across the country. And then politicians snooped in. Politicians saw the opportunity to make hay while the sun shines. And rather than behave like national leaders and go there and try to calm the storm, try to be, you can be formed, they can be opposed. They can be highly critical of everything, the way the police handle it, and everything else, critical of whatever they wish. But they did not have to stand there and encourage the criminal conduct. And it is not coincidence that this criminal conduct then spun across Demerara, even to Essequibo. And the criminal conduct, the lighting of the roads, the destruction of the property, the creation of the mayhem, all began to happen in the opposition stronghold areas across the country, leading one to believe that this entire saga was centrally, or is being centrally directed. How does the inconvenience and the trauma and the fear and the terror that is being instilled into so many others, thousands of persons across the country, help Adriana and her family? There is no connection, and there is no way whatsoever that these things that have occurred could have been justified. And for how long will we continue to countenance this conduct in this country? For how long? And you have an opposition leader that then makes a statement and says that this violent conduct and what we witnessed across the country last night came from the government, from the People's Progressive Party government planting persons in the crowd. Now, how can such a person ever be expected to be taken seriously? Tell me. This opposition leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton, has brought out the old hackneyed argument of the PNC that they have used for decades. In the 90s and in the early 2000s, they used to say that when they lost the elections in 92 and they were burning and beating, and when they lost the election in 1997 and they were burning, beating and looting, and when they lost the election in 2001 and there was burning, beating and looting, they said that it was the PPP doing that. And that Odinga Lumumba used to control some gang that the PPP used to unleash among their PNC legitimate supporters and cause the riotous conduct. That is the story that they peddled for all the years. And Mr. Aubrey Norton has reworked that narrative. And he now says that the PPP is using 10-day workers to do this. Now, this is what this gentleman is saying, that the People's Progressive Party is using persons that it is paying to destabilize the country against the PPP government, to burn the roads, burn bridges, block the roadways, so as to cause mayhem and confusion and pandemonium under the governance of the PPP. So the PPP is causing protest actions against itself and is using its own supporters to do so. So we as a government, we don't want peace in the country. We prefer, as a government, to govern over turmoil, to govern over chaos. That is what Mr. Norton is telling you that the PPP is doing. And to have the police force out all night and to bring out the army against our own government. Last night I was on the east coast of Demerara until this morning. And we are doing that against ourselves. That is what Mr. Aubrey Norton wants the world to believe and wants Guyanese to believe. And yet, they would like people, Guyanese, to take them seriously. That is the narrative that they are running. And they expect you to believe that. Now, we have about 15,000 10-day workers in the country. About 15,000 thereabouts. These people are listening to Mr. Norton. They would have about 10 or more persons each that they would have close to them. So that's 15,000 by 10, that's 150,000 people. Who would know that this is complete, utter nonsense? Then, of course, you have the whole PPP base who would know that it is utter nonsense. And then those who are out there who are actually doing the act would know that it is utter nonsense. So which segment of the population does Mr. Norton intend to persuade with that highly ridiculous narrative? Tell me, what segment of the population is he pitching to? And that is the thoughtlessness of these opposition politicians. And then they expect people at the same time, including their own supporters, to take them seriously. Now, let's get back to the investigative process that has begun. I have said that you can never get justice through injustice. So, if you want justice, you have to allow a process to take place. If you want revenge or if you want vengeance, it's a different thing. But if you want justice, it must unfold in a particular way prescribed by law. And that process has begun. And it has begun with the autopsy. The family rightly requested an opportunity to bring their own pathologist, and that was granted. In fact, 3 pathologists came. One from Barbados, one from Mount Sinai Hospital, New York, and one who is the chief medical examiner for the state of Delaware, chosen by Adriana's family. So these are international forensic pathologists of the most celebrated qualifications and of high reputation and standing across international borders. Dr. Shubhakar Karapal is employed by the government of Barbados in the office of the Attorney General. Dr. Glenn Rodner is from Mount Sinai and is a professor in pathology. And Dr. Gary Collins is the chief medical examiner for the state of Delaware. So these are not local people by any stretch of the imagination, and they are all highly qualified persons in the field. And these persons, along with chosen representatives of the family of the deceased, including family members and other medical personnel of the family or chosen by the family, along with an attorney at law representing the interest of the family, all attended the post-mortem, which was conducted jointly by the 3 pathologists in the presence of all the named persons that I have just made reference to. The pathologist, according to Darren Wade, he said the pathologist conducted a meticulous and comprehensive examination. In fact, they went beyond the standard procedures typically followed in such cases. That is what Darren Wade said. He's quoted in the press as saying so. They had a Dr. Caleb McLaughlin observe the postmortem on behalf of the family as well. And he was also high in praises for the level of professionalism demonstrated, the degree of thoroughness exercised, and the explanations that were proffered as the process was ongoing. And at the end of the process, the pathologists unanimously concluded that Adriana Young died by drowning. Died by drowning. That there was no evidence of sexual assault. There was no evidence of violence on the body. There was no evidence of forced drowning or any other form of killing. Those were the main findings of the forensic examination. Now, if that is the finding of a scientific process, on what rational basis would that finding, is that finding being rejected? It can't be rejected on rational basis. So the rejection of the findings and what followed thereafter were irrational and uncivilized occurrences. The looting, the burning, and the beatings that occurred cannot be condoned in any civilized society. They constituted acts of terrorism. And they were all designed to rob and steal. That is what it was about. An opportunity to rob and steal under the pretext that somehow this is for Adriana, and this is something motivated by her death. Nothing like that. These people who did these acts and who were committing these acts, I don't think they even know Adriana. I know that they don't know her. But they were persons who saw an opportunity to get paid. And that is what was happening. I want to commend the Guyana Police Force and the Guyana Defense Force, who came out late in the night, for bringing calm and for arresting the situation and restoring normalcy in our country. Our men and women in uniform performed with great restraint. I believe they exercised great maturity. I've said already they're not a perfect bunch, but they were acting under tremendous pressure, and they were able to bring the situation to calm. It is now public knowledge that 3 students of Chatamargo Primary School, along with 2 teachers, were burnt by a substance thrown at them by 2 persons on a motorcycle riding through the village of Success, and the substance thrown upon them is believed to be some form of corrosive acid. That must be an act that cannot be rationalized at any level. These are school children in their school uniform, walking home, and in the company of 2 teachers, randomly chosen, and the substance thrown at them, causing them to suffer injuries across their faces and in other parts of their body. Fortunately, not too serious injuries. What could inspire such dastard acts? What? And that is why, from all indications, it appears as though the proper offense to charge these persons with is no less an offense other than terrorism, which is provided for by Section 309A of the Criminal Law Offences Act. It says, it's a long section, but whoever with the intent to threaten the security or sovereignty of Guyana, or to strike terror in the people or any section of the people, does any act or thing by using bombs, dynamite, and they have a whole set of things, or by any other means whatsoever, in such a manner as to cause or likely to cause death of or injuries to any person or persons, or loss of or damage to or destruction of property, etc., etc., shall commit a terrorist act. And a person who commits a terrorist act, if death results, that person will get the death penalty along with a fine of $1,500,000 and the death penalty. That is, if death results from one of these terrorist acts. And if death does not result, then the fine is not less than $500,000 together with imprisonment for no less than 10 nor more than 15 years. And anyone who conspires or attempts to commit or advocates, aids and abets or advises or incites or knowingly facilitates the commission of a terrorist act or any act preparatory to a terrorist act commits an offense and shall be punishable for the offense as if he had been guilty as the principal offender. So if you participate in any preparatory act, if you aid and abet, if you incite, if you conspire to, if you in any way counsel or encourage the commission of a terrorist act, you are liable to be charged for that same offense, and you are liable to the same penalty as if you were a principal offender. So it's a very broad charge, and it's a very punitive charge. It's one of the most serious offenses on our statute books. And what we have seen across the country, and the mayhem that we have seen resulting from these actions last night and the whole of yesterday, this seemed to be the most appropriate offenses or offense to charge these persons with. The police have said, and it's already public information, that some 100 persons are in custody. Hopefully, they will be charged shortly, and we will see how that unfolds. Again, I am the minister with responsibility for justice. The police will charge, as they have promised they will do, and the charges will be placed before the justice system. It's an independent justice system, and the country and the public will be anxiously looking to see how these matters unfold in the justice system. no doubt the public expectation would be that the matters would be proceeded with expeditiously, that the judiciary or the magistracy in this case will view the matter and the charges with the seriousness that they deserve, that the appropriate legal principles of law will be applied, and once the evidence is presented, one would expect that the magistrates will rule based upon the evidence presented and will render a verdict in accordance with law. And that's all that we ask for. And that it be done with dispatch. These are matters of national importance again. Many a times you will see that the government of Guyana is held responsible and law enforcement agencies are held responsible for the paucity of convictions in criminal cases. But the truth is, and check the international reports. One made the news last week. And one of the criticisms advanced in that report was that there is not adequate convictions. The truth of the matter is neither the government nor the law enforcement agencies control or have any control or have any influence over the way the cases are determined. And that is how it should be. But it is the government and the law enforcement agencies that are held responsible and are blamed when there is no conviction. But all the law enforcement agencies and the prosecutorial agencies can do is to present the case and present the evidence. We can do no more after that. So, it is hoped, therefore, that the administration of criminal justice will view the matter with the seriousness that it requires, and hopefully we will have an early determination of the charges when they are filed. As I am on that note, it is in the press that Adonica Alder, the wife of Calvin Brutus, is still out of the jurisdiction. You would recall that this person had made an application for bail, made an application to leave the jurisdiction of Guyana to seek medical attention somewhere in the US, and was refused permission to do so by a high court judge. This person then approached a magistrate and obtained that permission, despite a high court judge refusing to exercise a similar discretion in her favor. A date was fixed by that very magistrate for this person to return to Guyana. That date has long gone, and the person is still out of the country. And I read somewhere in the press that on the last occasion, when the case was called, the magistrate was informed that someone is waiting for a passport to be issued. And the matter was adjourned again for that to be verified. This is very strange. This older person is charged with Brutus and others in 200 odd cases of fraud. This matter is occupying national and regional attention. Guyana received an award for the investigations done in this matter. It got a Best Case Award at the level of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. We got a Best Case Award for the amount of work done and the level and quality of investigations done. And now it is before the judiciary, it is before the magistracy. And we are now being told that the case must await somebody to get a passport. This person left to seek medical attention. That is what was published in the press. That was the express condition granted to the person several months ago. This medical attention must have been administered, received during this period. And, the case keeps adjourning. A matter of this importance is being just adjourned and adjourned one date after another. This, again, is a matter of national public importance. Hundreds of millions of dollars of public funds have allegedly been defrauded in these cases. Now, I am not being critical of the judiciary here, but it is my role and function to speak on these matters. And all I have done is simply recite what the facts are as they have been disseminated and published in the public domain, in the newspapers. I am simply commenting respectfully on them, as I am entitled to do. But these are matters that we have to speak on. It is my duty to speak on. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the United National Congress of Trinidad and Tobago and Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, its leader, on winning a landslide victory on the 28th of April, yesterday, at the elections held in that country. Congratulations to Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, the incoming Prime Minister, and congratulations to all those persons who have won their seats at those elections. I've looked at the elections, I've looked at some of the campaigns, some of the rallies, and it was a healthy campaign. And what I want to draw the attention of Guyanese to is the fact that before 12 o'clock last night, before 12 o'clock midnight last night, I think, or thereabouts, about midnight, the election results were available, and the People's National Movement, the government that lost, conceded. Polls would have closed at 6 p.m. as they close in Guyana by law, and within 6 hours thereafter, the election results were known and the losing party conceded, and the results were officially announced after that. Compare that with Guyana, where you have a pack of fraudulent where you have the PNC and the AFC. We took 5 months. Those people took 6 hours to concede. We took 5 months while these sanctimonious gangsters attempted to steal the elections. And up to now, we had multiple litigations all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. We had a national recount observed by a singular observer team chosen by them. We had 100 governments condemning them. We had the elections observed by every major observer team in Guyana, in the Caribbean, and in the Commonwealth. And the elections were certified to be free and fair. The PNC and AFC accepted at the close of poll that elections were peaceful and quiet, and that they won the elections. And then when the statements of poll began to come in and they saw, all hell broke loose. And you know the narrative well. PNM took 6 hours to concede, or less. 5 years have gone, and these pack of losers here have not yet conceded. 5 years coming, not have gone. 5 years are coming. PNM concede in 6 hours. 5 years are coming to an end. And our sanctimonious gangsters in Guyana are yet to concede defeat in those elections. And that must be a telling difference between the politicians in that country and the politicians in our country. So let me see if I could. Yeah, Ali Ahmad is reminding us that Lowenfield wanted 160 days and just to recount the ballots. But, I mean, we all lived through that, and we are coming to another elections. Hopefully these things do not reoccur. I don't think we can endure another 5 months. This is where I have to bid you goodbye. My operator is signaling to me that we are approaching program time. Again, we have another long weekend, so I want to take this opportunity to extend to you, in particular, the working people of our country. Thursday is May Day, it's Labor Day, it's a day to celebrate the struggles and the victories of our workers, and workers in Guyana and workers across the globe have won many, many major victories, and there are much to celebrate, but there are still much to work for as a working people. We still have people working under harsh conditions. We still have exploitations in Guyana and across the globe, and therefore the struggle for better working conditions will always be a perennial one. It will always be an ongoing struggle. So, May Day, we will celebrate with the workers of our country, and then on May the 5th, on Monday, May the 5th, we will be celebrating Arrival Day in Guyana, and we will have celebrations across the country to celebrate the arrival of our indentured brothers and sisters, in particular our Indo-Guyanese indentured servants, and that will be celebrated on May the 5th. So happy Arrival Day to all of Guyana and to you wherever you are. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Enjoy the rest of the week. Take care, and may God bless you. Thank you.